Staying at my parents' house has always been great. They have a beautiful house, lots of property, the food and drinks are free, and the only thing I really miss when I visit is a private place to sleep. I either have to sleep in my mom's office / the guest room, or on the futon in the basement. It's a pretty trivial issue, I know, but it's what inspired me to start building myself a treehouse in the first place. A few years ago, I started building it as a place to sleep that would allow me to get only the benefits of staying here, but school, work, and laziness have prevented me from finishing it. That is, until one particular morning when I felt the treehouse taunting me. Before I could get started, I needed supplies, so I went to the hardware store to get everything I'd need to complete the outside of the treehouse. When I got back, I realized that it would be much easier to work if I cut the weeds. So I cut them all down, but that's when I ran into my first problem. I needed something to stand on to access the walls. Because of the angle of the hill, I decided I needed to build something level with the side of the treehouse. I installed a series of 2x4s along the side of it, and then I began cutting the size plywood that I could use as the platform. I knew it wasn't the safest thing I could build, but I was confident it would get the job done. Once I had secured the platform with some screws, it was finally time to move on to the next step, putting on the Tyvek. I plan on eventually insulating the building, so it's important to keep moisture out. I got quite a bit of Tyvek on my first day. Before I finished, the sun began to set, so I went inside, watched a movie, and then it was time to sleep. When I woke up the next morning, I carried on with the Tyvek. I made sure to leave a little excess around the roof so that I could fold it down and prevent water from getting underneath it. Once I had covered all the surfaces, I had to tape between the seams to make sure water wouldn't get there either. With that finished, it was time to start the roofing process. I climbed on top of the building and began installing the drip edge to guide rain away from the walls. I rolled out the gaff to seal any cracks and provide grip for me while I was up there. Next, I lay out the roof panels, securing them with deck screws temporarily because I forgot to buy the proper fasteners. I cut the roof where necessary, like around the tree, and with no more sunlight left, I called it a day. I returned to my parents' house on August 1st. I knew I didn't have much time before university started back up, so I wanted to get the walls painted. My mom requested that I make it look like one of the houses from Newfoundland, and seeing as it's her property, I figured it was only fair. My goal for the day was to get all the panels painted. I had work the next morning, so I didn't really have much of a choice. With a total of 11 panels, each requiring 2 coats of paint and paint between each seam, time wasn't on my side. Several hours later, I finally finished the first coat. The sun was about to set. I quickly applied the second coat in chronological order, beginning with the first panel that got painted. The next morning, I laid them all against a tree near the treehouse for next time. I packed my car up, then headed back to the city to go to work. The part I had been dreading the most finally arrived. Hanging the walls. The first thing I did was hang some 2x4s to help hold the panels while I screwed them in. Then, I took measurements for the panels that would surround the window. This was the part that intimidated me the most, so I chose to do it first to get it out of the way. I temporarily secured the panel to the wall so that I could trace the portion that needed to be removed. I proceeded by taking more measurements where needed, installing one panel at a time. I finished 3 walls that day. I picked up after myself, and then I continued where I left off the following day. I finished the day by putting up the last of the panels around the door. All that remained was finishing the roof, putting up the trim, installing the window, and a few other finishing touches. School had gotten the best of me. I waited until the last couple days of decent weather before getting back to work. It was too cold and moist outside to paint the trim out there, so I did it inside of the outbuilding where it would be safe to dry. In batches of 6, I lay the trim out, painting the surfaces first and then the edges as well. After each batch, I lay them against a wall so that they wouldn't stick to the cardboard. While those dried out, I went out to find the window I had selected for the treehouse and, for some reason, left outside for 3 years straight. I cleaned it off as best as possible, and then I installed it as carefully as I could using a rubber mallet and lots of silicone. The following day, I first took measurements for all of the trim. I then cut the trim down to size and then installed it along all the edges of the treehouse. A bit of paint to cover the blemishes, proper roof fasteners, and I had finally finished, or at least essentially finished, the exterior of the treehouse.